Thank you. And do we have
Yes, I
Council
am.
Council Beyondich on Zoom? Okay, very good. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the special Virginia City Council meeting as a committee of the whole. I will call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. The time is 9 a.m. We have four items on the agenda for today, and we do have a regularly scheduled council meeting for tonight at 5:30 as well. Pam, would you please take our roll call?
Baraboo,
Present.
Friedlieb,
Present.
Paulson,
Present.
Beyondich,
Present.
Johnson,
Here.
Aaronzelli, Cuffey,
Present. Thank you. So we have four items on the agenda. The first item on the agenda is the Vida Downtown Rehabilitation Project. And we have with us today from CRD, Mr. Steve Peterson and Gary, boy, I'm telling you, Gary Lampa, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. And Gary Lampa from CRD. So, Britt, you got to turn over to CRD. Did you want to take a look at the rehabilitation project and get an explanation for the general public with respect to this?
Go ahead. Yes, that'd be fine. Let's
Go ahead.
We'll go with CRD.
Okay,
In
thank
your
you.
packet is that most current update of the status of the 2020 downtown district renovations.
And, okay, thank you. And Mr. Peterson or Mr. Lampa, did you want to address the council in any way, shape, or form as we move forward with this project? Very good, thank you. Okay, council?
If I could, Mayor, just really quickly, I'd like to report that we have two of them that one has completed, one is just about complete. Commercial refrigeration is done. Poppers is just about done. And I think this Friday they should be complete. Roof at Poppers. And then we have Aaron's Insurance Agency has been cleared, and we have the mortgage to them. They have not signed it yet, so they're ready to go whenever they decide to tell the contractor to go. And then at the VITA meeting this Friday, we have 3 more mortgages ready to go. I do know Matson's are already working on theirs. They're pouring the floor today, so they're already going. So Cane Lakes is going. La Casina and Cantina is waiting for her mortgage, which will be approved at the Friday's VITA meeting, and Barbara Graphics is waiting for their mortgage, which will be approved at Friday's.
Okay, thank you. And with respect to all these projects that are moving forward, nice to see that they're coming to fruition. Has there been in any one of these projects, has SHPO been a cog to some degree as a delay moving forward? So that's why we're delaying a little bit more, but we seem to be moving forward through that thanks to CRD and our staff trying to get that accomplished.
Yes, we have found that an architect is key to talking to SHPO, because SHPO doesn't talk a language that many of us speak. Architects do speak well with SHPO, and they have moved it along quite rapidly, which has been great. The top 4 on your list, the Klink Building, Laurentian Divide Salon and Spa, Chestnut Collision, and Up North Dental, I'm sorry, top 5, so W.A. Fisher are the 5 that we're having a little delay with SHPO asking a lot more clarifying questions than the other projects on the list. So we are working through their questions and responding appropriately. This has required us to meet with not only the architect, but also with the property owners to make sure is this really what you want? Because we have SHPO is asking these questions, and how far did you want to go with this project? SHPO has tried to insert some steps that I think were not necessarily necessary. So they had proposed, one of the businesses had proposed just replacing a door, and they came back and said, well, you need to replace all your windows. That was not part of the project or the intent of the project. So we have clarified that with SHPO. That property owner was not intending to touch the windows or do anything with that. He was going to maintain them the way they are.
Thank you very much,
That
Britt.
discussion and dialogue has been the challenge.
Fantastic. And before we go to the council, Mr. Peterson. Would you turn on the mic, Steve? Thank you
Just
very
want to
much.
add a couple things here, expound on what Britt said. SHPO's gone back to the 50s, that decade, 40s, 50s, and so a lot of these buildings have been renovated numerous times, and so we're trying to bring that back into compliance with SHPO, which is sometimes often difficult because the interiors have been changed, they've been added on, they've been done this, done that, so it's challenging. The other issue that we're running into, there's two more actually, contractors. We're very limited on contractors. When we bring a contractor in, we're lucky if we get on their waiting list. They're months out. We have basically one roofing contractor that we've been working with because we can't find any others. And so we're in the queue, but it's just, we have to go along with their schedule. The other thing that's impacted us is materials. And some of you may have noticed this, but there's a huge shortage of materials. And it's all based on this COVID. So we're working through all those issues as we go forward and holding the hands of these people and trying to get them done. So that's about all I wanted to say. And it's working. You don't see a lot of progress, but there's a lot of internal things that are happening with us and the building owners. So with that, if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Well, first, we'll start with, I think, Counselor Paulson had her light on first, and then we'll go to Counselor Bearwood and then to Counselor Johnson.
Thank you.
Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. Since you're up there, can I ask a question in terms of where SHPO's requirements are? Are they also within, say if a building owner wanted to just do interior, do they still have to go through the SHPO process, or is that just exterior on the process?
Good question, Counselor. The SHPO's main concern is the exterior, doors, windows, egress, copings, things like that. So interior has not been an issue.
So I mean, part of the intention of the program was to get these buildings up to fire code standards, which I don't know if a lot of exterior work would need to be done rather than interior work. So of those projects that are listed, are most of those projects exterior, or are they some just interior that could be moved forward quicker?
Well, there's a combination of both, but most of them are exterior projects.
They are.
There's some that are. For example, on the new go-around, Rocket Liquor is looking at doing some interior work, and Rocket Liquor is not in the historical area, but SHPO's guidelines say any historical building that's in view of another building has to come into compliance. So Northern State Bank is a historical building. They are in direct line with Rocket Liquor, so Rocket Liquor has to comply with
They have to
SHPO.
comply.
It-
And then, does that reflect on the old Hoisington study? Is that kind of where they're
Where it
looking
started.
at in terms of the facade?
Yes, Counselor, that's where it started, back with the Hoisington study.
I mean, is that what SHPO's looking at now as a document moving forward, or are they looking at 50s images of our community in that historical allocation?
In my conversations with SHPO, they have not mentioned the Hoisington study to me. I believe they're going back to the 50s, the 40s, that era.
All right, thank you. And I have a couple more financial questions, but I'll go.
You know, we might as well, you're on a roll.
I'm on a roll. So this would be more of a Sherry Brick question, and I know Sherry couldn't make it today, but in terms of the tax, on the budget for the downtown rehabilitation project document, tax abatement bond proceeds, where is that $300,000 coming from? And it says, I don't have a year on here, so is that fiscal year 2020?
Yes.
And what, didn't we receive the $500,000 in 2020, or was that 2019?
We received the $300,000 as a tax abatement bond that Vita sold, or City sold on behalf of Vita, so that cash came in, we haven't expended it yet. We also had $250,000 from IRRB, that's reimbursement sake, so we don't have it, but it's ready for us to pull in when we need it. Then we also have $50,000 from Virginia Community Foundation that is in our pocket.
So is that from 2020's award and not including the 2020 $200,000 plus the
Correct, that's in 2020.
$50,000 from the foundation?
Correct, that's 2021. Yes.
Thank you for that clarification. Then under the grant awards dispersed, there's a $0 amount there. I'm assuming that we haven't paid out any of that because of the project completion. There's been no project completion on that?
Yeah, our policy on our guidelines state that you must complete the project first. We have to have verification it's been completed, and then you get your money. So I do believe that two that have completed or are completing wrote the checks themselves. They didn't wait for us and are going to bring us copies
So they're
of
waiting then
receipts.
for the reimbursement? Okay, that's what I was waiting to see.
But now after that, then we'll have a dollar amount in that,
Okay.
in that column.
Okay, and then if I may, Mayor, skip to the, I don't know if we've got 2021 budget in here, but when I pulled up the guidelines from the IRRB, I do have a question, and maybe you can answer this, Steve. When they allocated that $7 million, like $4 million to businesses, $2 million to the city, or vice, whatever that was that an internal IRRB budget process, or did they get federal CARES money to create, to put forth those dollars? Do you know?
So, Mr. Mayor, Counselor, to my knowledge, that was an internal
Okay.
board action during their budget meeting.
So then we're under their, more the IRRB's guidelines for this expenditure and those dollars, and not necessarily the CARES grant
Correct.
allocation on those. Okay.
And I did verify with IRRB that the deadline for that is July 31st of 2021, not the December, which is
So
federal.
we have more time.
We have more time,
Okay.
which is needed. As Steve alluded to, materials and contractors are very difficult.
Okay, and then I had one other thing that was a little bit of an issue to me, if I may, was the fact that it was a 4-to-1 match, and the foundation graciously gave the $50,000 when really what was only needed to match was, maybe Counselor Johnson needs to give me math correction lessons, $50,000 total. So I'm a little curious as to how that conversation happened. And I know Vita would normally allocate probably 50,000, normally it's a 1-to-1 match. This was a 1-to-4 match. It was more of a looser match. So I'm just curious as to how that conversation happened and why the conversation didn't come back to Vita to be able to maybe split that pot and lighten up the foundation's, I wouldn't call it an obligation, but the foundation's input in terms of their dollar amount. Is that a sore spot?
So,
I'm sorry if it is.
Mr. Mayor, Counselor, that's a good point. We didn't approach the foundation with that 4-to-1 match. The mayor was present during that meeting, and as the city administrator. When we first approached the foundation a year ago, we asked for $250,000 total contribution over a 5-year span, and that was tentatively agreed on. It wasn't in writing, but the foundation gave the first tranche of $50,000 and indicated that if this program deemed successful, they would be interested in going forward. And that's kind of the approach we took. If they're willing to give us $50,000, I think that's a great thing for them to do, and why not accept that? They want to be part of this program, and that's really part of their mission statement, to beautify and enhance the downtown. So we just left it at $50,000.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, Mr. Peterson, just a quick question. As these projects finish and go to fruition, are we tacking on new projects for 2021 on this to keep the balance going? Because we had, we were able to do, 10 this first go-around? Or is it more, Brett? 12? Okay. So if we finish up these 2, it brings down 10. Are we going to add 2 more as we move along on this program, Steve? Depending on contractors and stuff?
So, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Bearable, we have 6 more for 2021 under the new program.
Okay.
So, to answer your question, I guess it would be yes, we are moving, we're kind of combining both of these at the same time. Some are ready to go. Bauman Funeral Home over there is on the new program, but they're ready to go. They have their contractors lined up. They want to get started, so we've kind of jumped ahead. They're not in the SHPO designated area, so they can move ahead. So we're trying to just work them all together as best we can.
That makes good sense. So thank you for doing that. And Brett, thank you for your input into that.
We don't want to impede anybody that has the ability to start now to not start. We want them to go and get it done.
Yeah, as long as they got the matches and stuff.
Exactly. As long as they have contractors lined up and they're ready to go, let's let them go.
Good.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Bearable. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Would someone please define SHPO? We've been throwing that term around, and if somebody's not watching or hasn't been keeping up, they have no idea what we're talking about. Could someone please define that and why they're involved.
It's the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office, and they are involved because in late 1990s, the city designated the downtown district, which is 100 block through the 400 block of Chestnut, as a downtown district. So all the facades are historic, including there's various pockets throughout Virginia that also are historic. One was the former T-shirt factory here, the Northern State Bank, the public utilities, the brewery. These are all historic buildings. And when those buildings are deemed historic, even though we don't have an ordinance for historic properties, the state still has responsibility to help maintain the feel and the preservation of those historic buildings.
So if I were a business owner and wanted to change the front of my building, if I had all the cash in the world, I still could not do that.
You could do that.
I could do that.
However, if you get any state or federal funding, you have to follow the state or federal guidelines,
Okay,
which would require historic review. Because our project has state funding through the IRRB involved in it, we have to follow the historic preservation guidelines.
right, and I appreciate that clarification, because I know that's been one of the frustrations. We touched on the inside versus the outside, which I understand. And what would, and this is just a question in general, what would happen if somebody, like, if they started a project and then they got state money, like, what ramifications are there for a business owner or the city or whomever if proper procedure is not followed?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Johnson, there's several issues that the SHPO has the authority to levy a fine either on the building owner or the city. It is by law that SHPO has that authority. They designated or redesignated themselves as an authority. Maybe Gary can remember this, but it was a few years ago that any dollars that go into the project from outside sources. A few months back when we first started this, I said that the IRRB was not state dollars. It no longer matters that it's not state dollars, it's local dollars, but SHPO still has that authority. So it can be very detrimental to the city. And a good example would be the Lyric Theater now has gotten several dollars from SHPO over the years. They could stop that because of somebody that didn't comply with the SHPO order. So it's not something that you would want to challenge.
And I appreciate you saying that, because I don't want a business owner to move forward without knowing that there could be some serious consequences. I want folks to be doing it right. I appreciate the work you've done, and I happened to be driving down First Avenue this week and noticed the huge improvement to the building in East Virginia over there. So I'm excited that we can start bragging about this stuff a little bit, and I would ask that we do start doing that. I know we had a nice ribbon cutting and check presentation to Cane Lakes folks, and now I see their next door is boarded up, which usually indicates outside work is being done. So I look forward to celebrating a couple of these before the snow flies so that people can see where the money's going to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Anyone else? Councilor Beyondich, any questions for CRD or any comments about the downtown rehabilitation project?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Lampa? Okay, next item on the agenda, please.
Thank you. If it's acceptable to the council, I'd like to move up the review draft contract for the MEC Event Marketing Coordinator,
Okay.
as we have Tracy Lundin from the Lundin Group here today.
Okay, well, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Lundin, and we'll move down to item 4, which is review the draft contract for the MEC Event Marketing Coordinator. It's a very comprehensive contract, to say the least, probably one of the most comprehensive contracts I've seen in a while. But I do believe that it's prudent to have this and make sure we did cross all the Ts and dot all the Is. So we open this up for further comment from the council. First, Councilor Johnson.
Just curious as to the logic of hockey being excluded with what it's red, sell and book event banquets, not hockey related. Could someone explain why
We already have
hockey's?
it at least with Baja,
Okay.
hockey-related tournaments and such.
How does that lease, what's that look like in a year or 2 years or 5 years?
Only The state is allowing us to only enter into a lease with Baja through 2021.
Okay.
We have to renegotiate their lease when the new building is built and have the state approve it.
Okay.
I don't know what that's going to look like in 5 years.
Okay, and that's because of the nonprofit utilizing a majority of the space
Correct,
in the
correct. There
facility.
are IRS regulations on that, and we have to be very careful. So the state has agreed, MMB, Minnesota Material Budget Office, has determined that they will allow us to continue a lease through 2021, but as soon as the new building is built, that they are going to be a partner at the table with us to determine the lease for Baja going forward.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate the clarification.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? Any other questions, comments, or concerns? I think you're looking for a motion to move forward. Is that correct, Brett?
Yes, and the red lines that are in the contract, Tracy and I were going back and forth, and these are the things we've added since the original draft. Correct, Tracy? Correct. Yep, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think the contract looks extremely great and comprehensive. And I just really want to thank the Lundin Group for applying, and I'm really excited to have your level of expertise come to this area with your group. So I just want to say thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lundin, would you like to address the council in any way, shape, or form? You're welcome to come forward to do so. We thank you for coming to this council, special councilman committee of the whole, and based upon the recommendations that received not only from our inquiries, but those who supported you in the community and this community and beyond. We're fortunate to have you here. We welcome you here, and we have any questions or comments for the council, please do so, and again, welcome, Mr. Lundin.
No, I'd just like to thank the council and the mayor for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure to work with Britt and to work with Brian. And the process, it's comprehensive, I guess, for a guy who's read a lot of contracts over the years for concert entertainers. A 4-page or 3-page contract's a real nice thing. But we're excited to hit the ground running. It's going to be a challenge, but it's going to be exciting, it's going to be fun, and it's exciting to see what's going on in Virginia as a whole. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Mr. Lundin, and I must say, before we go to the rest of the council, that you'll be working with a very professional staff that we have here. Our Park and Rec Director, Brian Silber, who'll be overseeing the entire complex, has been instrumental in this entire process and will be a great asset. You'll be a great asset to him as he manages this facility moving forward. So, and Brian is here today. I'm sure you've met Mr. Silber already. Councilor Baraboo.
Thank you, Mr. Lundin. The contract looks great, but I may have just skipped over. When are we planning to start your services in 2021 or prior to? Because we need a good.
If we approve this today, him and I will sign it immediately. We'll start it today.
That conversation came up. I said to Britt, is this a contract that'll start in 2021? And she went, we think we're a little behind right now and we should probably start sooner than that, and I agreed. But, I'm not certainly trying to rush the process. You have to do what you have to do, but we're ready when you're ready.
Okay. No, I was ready a long time ago for this.
There's going to be a lot of prep work, a lot of...
We understand, but you have to get out there nationwide and region-wide to get venues here by the time this opens in 2021. So it's not last minute. You got to start way ahead of time. That's my point on this. So I appreciate it.
You're
If we
correct.
approve this today, good luck in getting it going.
Yeah, and I think our Park and Rec Director, Brian Silber, has made some preliminary inquiries and laid the groundwork to help facilitate a smooth transition as you take over your position as we take a vote moving forward. Thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Mayor, one of the concerns that came up before was the delegation of duties within the miners. Is that something that the two of you have discussed or will be discussing as we're having city staff? You remember when that came up before, Brian? What's the plan for that at this point?
That'll be something that we will be in discussions about how we are going to manage.
Okay.
So we don't have that completely cemented out. we don't have the full staff in place at this point that we will have this time next year when the MEC is opening.
And I guess I appreciate you coming on now because of that. That was a discussion we had here about who's in charge of what and who can tell who what to do. But now that there's bodies in place, that conversation can happen. And I trust Brian's judgment when it comes to delegation and that moving forward. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Brian, Mr. Lundin. Counselor Paulson.
If no one has anything to add, I would like to make a motion to approve the service contract between the City of Virginia and the Lundin Group Incorporated.
Moved by Counselor Paulson to approve the contract with Lundin Group for services for the MEC Event and Convention Marketing Coordinator. Is there support?
All support, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Bearable. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Beyondich, anything you'd like to add before we move forward with the vote?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Brian, do you want to give maybe a brief update about ISG and what you guys have been working on too, since we're talking about MEC?
Okay, thank you.
As we continue to talk about the MEC and contracts, you may recall that here months ago, our city council approved a contract with ISG where we are working with them for naming rights or working through them with other companies for naming rights. Just wanted to give you a brief update without throwing out any names. In my email on Friday, I alluded that we had a couple of good conversations. Currently, we have made 4 presentations to different businesses. We've had a follow-up second presentation with one business. We have another first presentation scheduled for this afternoon, and we are currently scheduling 3 more first presentations with companies. So as you can see by those numbers that we are at 7 to 8 presentations to companies that are interested in potential naming rights. Things are going fairly well with the potential for us not calling it the MEC, but somebody ponying up the money to have it named something else, which is a standard practice. If you look across the state over at the Stanford Center, during its construction, it was not the Stanford Center, but it was the Bemidji Event and Convention Center was its name during construction. So that is a standard process to go through of the rebranding and changing of the names. So hopefully we are going to be getting to that point. We do have it laid out that there are many different sponsorship levels, from everything from low dollar amount things such as dasher boards to high dollar of the entire facility and everything in between. So it's not just the large corporations that would have an opportunity to have their business logo or support the MEC. It could even be a mom and pop shop here in town that would be able to afford to buy in and help do a private-public partnership to see this facility grow and be everything that everyone is envisioning that it can be.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian? Counselor Johnson.
So Brian, if I owned a business in town, who would I contact about those naming rights?
They can contact myself through my email account, brians@virginiamn.us, or they can contact Dwayne or Stu at Isaac Sports Group.
Thank you very much, Brian. Any further questions or comments? Counselor Beyondich, anything that you'd like to add?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, Brian, very much.
Get it. The next item on the agenda is the update on the CARES funding. In your packet, I did a little synopsis. Back in April 10th, 2020, the fire department was just simply given money from the federal government with no strings attached, no matching requirement, no reporting, anything. They were just handed $70,095.82 for medical supplies. On April 15th, the fire department was awarded a grant that the chief had applied for employee costs and supplies for mitigation of COVID-19. The report that he has to submit is in your packet. That is the second report of two. I believe there'll be 4 reports total. On July 23rd, the fire chief also applied for, he was also awarded a grant that he applied for specifically for the purchase of an ambulance. We have already approved that expenditure, and the ambulance is being built as we speak and should be here by the end of the year. Wonderful, thank you. And then on July 3rd, 2020, I think it was actually a little bit after that, the city received $635,796 for COVID-related expenses dating back to March 2020. And in your packet is a copy of the report that we must complete, the blue pages. And I apologize, it's a lockdown report, so I cannot make it any bigger or change any of the font or change any of the things. I can only fill in the spots. As of my August report, I have to do these monthly. The first report, first column you'll see says July, and July actually means March through July. It's everything up to that point. And then starting in August is just the 30 days in August, and then it'll be September, October, November, and December.
So question for you, if I may, Britt.
Yes.
So as far as the CARES Act funding that we received, to the requirement that the expenditures must be completed by the end of the year?
November 15th.
November 15th. So that does that apply only to the $100 and some thousand received from the federal government, or does also, the expenditures also have to be made by the fire department on the other grants they received?
They have different deadlines. Those are different
Right.
grants.
Okay, thank you.
The CRF is our grant that we have, that we're at the $635,000, and that's got different.
Very good. So ours is the one that has to be spent the first.
What happens is between November 15th and 30th, we have to complete our final report. Everything has to be either encumbered or spent. Anything that's not, we have to submit to St. Louis County. So then St. Louis County gets to decide what they do with the extra leftover funds. However, they're going to disperse them, use them, whatever they're going to do.
Okay, very good. With respect to the fire department expenditures with the ambulance, could we hear from Kevin Poffs from the fire department? Could you just give us a little update for the general public and for all of us about the CARES Act funding, the ambulance purchase, how we're moving forward with that, and then we'll move to the rest of the city council for comments and questions.
Yep, absolutely. So I came from training, so I've not dressed in uniform, but we have enough money, as I understand it, that we are purchasing a second ambulance. And we would like to. Yep, so thank you. That ambulance has been spec'd. It would be a twin, if you will, to the one that was approved a month ago. We're just kind of waiting for council approval. There is some price difference on that, and that's because we don't have to purchase a full self-loading cot system. We can move that from one ambulance that we're trading in to this new one. So we have some cost savings there. And then Councilor Baraboo, I think a good point is that we're going to be trading in one of these bigger ambulances. We call it a Type 1, but so we increased our trade-in value by $8,000 or $9,000, which is pretty significant because it has 300,000 miles on it, or just about 300,000 miles on it. So you'll see some cost savings there, but or I guess a little cheaper price than the one that was approved a month ago.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the council. First, Councilor Baraboo, then Councilor Paulson, and then Councilor Johnson. Councilor Baraboo.
Kevin, if we approve this second ambulance, these are the larger chassis also, correct?
Yep, it is.
Because I knew that
correct.
was going to happen way back when I suggested we go to the bigger chassis, that we get better trade-in value, because you see that with all big truck vehicle types, throughout when you trade something in. So I appreciate what you folks have done.
Thank you, and you guys, you're getting some return on some of that upfront cost. So this is a 2014 that would be traded in, and again, it's somewhere around 275 to 300,000 miles on it. We've got a lot of good use out of it, and it's been a good purchase.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a little bit more on the other side, on the financial side, and I'm totally comfortable with the ambulance. I don't know if I want to wait, should we make a motion? I don't,
Go
whatever.
ahead, please continue, and then we'll go from there.
I don't want to hold you up.
No, you're fine. I'm
I'm totally comfortable
here,
with
so
the
it's all
second
good.
ambulance. Some of the questions that I had were more, what is the company Fastenal? What is that kind of a company, and what are those purchases from Fastenal? Or I mean, not each and every one, but
no.
just describe the company maybe.
Fastenal supplies, they do supplies, parts, materials, bolts, nuts, such as that. They also have come up with a really innovative, unique cleaner, which is
A what?
a cleaner, a disinfectant. That's a foam fog. So like the locker rooms at the miners, they can go in with a backpack, fog it, leave it for a half hour, and they say it's completely disinfected. So they're using it on the squad cars also. So we've been using them as a fogger, for lack of a better term, letting the car sit for a half hour, and then the staff, you can smell it, it feels like it's cleaner. It's interesting.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And then the one other line item was in the amount of $27,124 to the city of Hibbing.
Have been a purchase for PPE, I believe.
Oh, yeah. So I wasn't directly involved with the purchasing, but we belong to, we work with other cities, and we got a bulk supply of PPE very early on in COVID. So there was the Tyvek suits, the masks, and all that kind of stuff. Us, I believe, Cloquet was
Another one,
involved
too.
in some of that purchasing as well with Hibbing.
So the city of Virginia purchased the PPE from the city of Hibbing.
What happened is City of Hibbing called Tiffany and said, we have the ability to purchase, I think it was $100,000 right now, if we can all pitch in, it's on its way. What was happening early on in COVID is we would place an order and the federal government would seize it. So, and it happened a lot, unfortunately. So every time we placed an order, it got canceled. We placed an order, it got canceled.
So great teamwork.
So thankfully Hibbing said, we got it, it's on its way, it's secured for us, it's not being seized. We said, yes, you get it, we'll come grab it, we'll give you the check, so.
Yeah,
then-
we're continuing to use that stuff today.
That's excellent, and great job on that. That's a lot of work. And then I guess I want to just thank Sherry and commend Sherry for putting all this together. I'm sure it was a lot of work. And I'm sure you have to submit it anyway, but I do appreciate the breakdown and just understanding that a lot of this was payroll expense and furlough expense really helped me understand the allocation of the dollar amounts from the 600,000. And then in terms of the card member services, credit card payments, I would assume those correlate to the credit cards statements that we got that said COVID-related.
Correct.
And so
correct.
those are
I can tell you the
each
majority.
kind of line
them-
itemed
Yep,
on
the majority of
here.
them were purchases were PPE. Again, every department was purchasing PPE when we could because all of them were getting canceled. So we were all just trying as hard as we could. So some came in, some didn't come in. We just did what we could.
Yeah, everyone's done a great job. Thank you so much. And then just one other item, if I may. Rogers Online Corporation in the amount of $3,260, and it's listed under other.
Yes, those are computers that we needed for when we went telecommuting. We needed to buy, we didn't have any laptops. Our staff, while the council has Surfaces and I have a Surface, our staff does not. So we
So these were
were
purchases of,
specifically for
be able to work remotely.
telecommute is what the
Okay.
term that the state uses. And then we've also used them when our staff did MSHA training. There was 6 staff members that couldn't complete MSHA. We took those 3 computers also and set them up in front of their 6 employees had never done Zoom, so it was a little interesting. We got it, and everybody got situated.
Excellent.
We've used those computers repeatedly for COVID-related type things that need to
Okay,
happen.
thank you so much. And I mean, I think the report looks great, and I was able to communicate with Sherry a little bit this morning before the meeting, and one of my other questions is how much unemployment maybe we may be allotted or not allotted or charged. And Sherry had kind of given me an indicator with a number of, if we shoot for this number, we'd still have some additional dollars left over. So that was encouraging to me that we actually have a little bit of a cushion if we need to use it for that
Correct.
purpose.
She was guessing, I think she said 50,000, is that what she told you? Was she was thinking 50,000 or less was the unemployment numbers, and she thought that was really high,
30,
actually.
I think.
Yeah, she was thinking more like 30. Again, high, that this was gonna be a high comparison because it was 14 people for 4 weeks. So she's just doing numbers in her head, thinking
So and then with any additional dollars left over, then it would be up to administration to figure out how to best spend those down by November 15th.
I have two department heads I know are coming to the next committee of the whole with request. One of them is Brian, and I think he left. We are going to have an issue when they're pushing back all these spring sports, running into our normally Little League baseball season, if baseball of high school is still playing, and girls softball. So we're going to have an issue. So he has a suggestion for some fencing he'd like to relocate, and he'll bring that to you which will be COVID-related, because it'll be decommissioning, recommissioning of a field that was not being used previously. Needs to spruce up, needs some help. And then Jody really wants to get a plan to open the library, but she needs some stuff. And so she's coming with her plan of what she needs for the library to get it open, not just for employee safety, but for active shooter safety and other related things.
So we'll be able to see each plan as it comes forward and try to maybe understand and maybe even give other input that
Yes,
to
so
help.
I've been kind of encouraging the staff, if you have a unique way that we could use some of these funds that would allow these things to come forward, and these are the two so far that have come forward and said, like I said, in Jody's case, she's like, I really want to open, even though COVID is going to be a reality for a while, I really want to get the library open to the public again, and I think we can do it with this. And so she's got a plan she's working on, and she's getting ready for October 6th.
Thank you so much.
Same
Brett.
with Brian. He says, I really foresee this is going to be a problem if high schools all push back. We're going to be running into schedule correlations and trying to get everybody on the same fields. Have an issue. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Johnson.
Mayor. Rick, just for my processing, at the top of the page where it says 7.3 state CARES funding, can you explain what the reference number is as opposed to the GL account and then the CRF category? Can you just define what those three columns are? Yeah, the Excel looking sheets, yes. Okay.
Not necessarily the date it was spent. So then the date it was put into the system is the next column. You'll see this when you get to August. You'll see August has dates it was entered, but the periods would be July or April. Those are delayed things that came in. We either ordered them in April and didn't come until August, or vice versa. So that's where the period and the date might be different. There are some things that I know I'm trying to think, something that we just ordered recently. The steel, it's for Brian, he needed a little bit bigger tent, our large one ripped. The steel won't be until November, but the tent fabric will be here soon, so we don't have to pay for it until the beginning of November. So that'll be one of those things we ordered in August or September. We won't pay till November. The journal is the journal that the type of expense it was. AP is accounts payable. The other ones you'll see are payroll benefits, PB, and then there'll also be a CD, which is journal entry, the cash disbursements that. The reference is actually the journal entry number. So when I have a question, if it's on this sheet, I can actually go look at the actual journal and see what was coded, how it was coded, if it was moved from something or other, just some more background details for accounting.
So I'll just take the first one. If I had a question about what we bought at Menards for $96.99, you can go back and put in.
Type in 606.001, pull up that journal entry, and then I can tell you what the GL account, which department it was.
Okay.
I purchased it. It's a lot of detail that, to us that use this all the time, this is what we're looking at constantly. So like with the credit card ones that say card member services, that's exactly what I did. I went in and put the reference number, pulled up the GL, see what it was.
And all of this technically is public record.
Correct.
So when we do have something that just says Menards or Gulf
Mark
Coast
or
Pharmaceutical, all the records are there, everything is there. We can just send an email or say, hey, what was this? So there's not, it may look like it's a generic, we don't know what it is, but when you go into the computer system, it's there detail line by line.
They'll tell me who entered it, when it was entered, I think even the time it was entered.
Okay.
And the CRF category at the very end is just simply my way when I was going through and how I could decipher these. If you go to the sheets that have the descriptions and what the funds can be used for, you'll see little hand scratch codes on the side. That was just my way of coding where it went to for the state, if it was economic support or other compliance with public health measures, or however it was going to be.
So, and I guess my point of asking that is really to reemphasize that we are tracking every single penny and that there isn't any room for error or fraud or anything like that. Like the staff here, and you have access to that at a high level, but each of the staff the people paying the bills are different from the people putting the bills into the system. It's all part of our accounting practices.
Correct. And then Sherry and I put this report together. We double check it again. We just triple checked it again yesterday just to make sure our dollar amounts change. I do want to point out, so going forward in September, we are going to have September report is going to have expenses from August and July because they didn't come in until September. So we didn't pay for it till then, but we encumbered it back in August or July. So keep that in mind so that the numbers may change in August and July's may change too. So when you start seeing these reports monthly, they may change, but that's because we're back coding.
And encumbered means that we're telling the computer system this money is spent even though we haven't sent it away.
Correct, correct.
So thank you, I appreciate that clarification. And then I did the quick math that there's $353,000 roughly left.
Correct.
But that the potential new ambulance, is that in that 350 or is that after the ambulance?
Nope, you would take the 350 minus the ambulance.
So there would be about 100-ish left that we're going to be creative with, including, like we talked about last time, potentially arranging this room to be more COVID-friendly or other staff offices to provide better both personal protection and then area protection. Okay. I think that's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to add, I had talked with a person in another community. The way that they had used some of their COVID resources was for election machines, for voting machines. Because of the early voting and the social distancing requirements, have we thought about doing any of that at all? And I thought Councilor Baraboo had mentioned something that we could use a new voting machine, or is that something that we could?
Another voting machine. Sorry.
Pardon?
I'm surprised Pam hasn't jumped in yet. Yes, she would love another voting machine here at City Hall because I think she updated us Monday that we have 1,000 absentee ballot applications, which is 1/4 of the voters, which is unprecedented, have requested to have early
And
voting.
that's what the person that I spoke to, basically, they were really getting inundated, and they just said it would be really, they actually did earmark some of their funding for, and would that meets the criteria?
I'm willing to make sure that it would.
Okay.
Put it in the other
Yeah,
column.
I would love to see us consider doing that, and one, if not two, if, I don't know how much they are.
Jumping on now.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson, for bringing that up. Yes, Britt and I had talked about it probably last week or so, but at that time, we weren't sure if it would qualify. But yes, that would be something definitely that we would need here in the office. We have about 1,000 absentee ballots that we need, applications that we are trying to get out the door as soon as we can, so.
And then,
When
Pam,
they
if
come
I could
back,
add,
It's gonna be quite busy, and they are about $5,000.
that was my next question, 5,000. So, would one be sufficient, or would two, one ambulance, two ambulances, one voting machine, two, what would be sufficient?
One would be fine to process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pam, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Baraboo.
Yeah, my philosophy, Julianne, is for $5,000, that's 10,000. Get two, because if you get a breakdown when you're doing stuff, you're gonna need an extra one besides. And these things last for a number of years, so I wouldn't worry about it. And as things pick up, we may need a couple more. So I'd go with two.
Yeah, thank you. Counselor Beyondich, any questions, comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else with respect to the CARE Act funding, Counselor Bonzelli?
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah.
Kevin, a year ago or so, that ambulance blew the engine Remember when it blew everything down and it wrecked the transmission and the
Yep.
truck was totaled?
Yep.
Did you ever get scrap money for that? Did they junk it?
I believe we sold that on the government auction site.
Yeah, it was out at the city garage.
Yep, and it got sold, so there was, I don't remember what that amount was, but there,
Had some money.
yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are you requesting, Britt, that we, I didn't get a chance to look at the entire agenda for tonight. I'm going to review that today after this meeting. But are we going to be looking at approving the ambulance at tonight's meeting?
Yes, it is on the agenda for tonight,
On
for under
tonight's
the
agenda.
discussion for the minutes. So
Okay.
it could wait for approval at that point, if that's okay with the.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we don't need
Okay.
a motion right now then? Okay.
No, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments with respect to the update on the CARES Act funding? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. Do we need to make a motion for the voting machines? Or, okay, I would make a motion that out of the leftover dollar amount that we, the city of Virginia, purchase 2 new voting machines to allow for us to comply with COVID regulations regarding social distancing and absentee ballots.
Providing that it's authorized under the CARES Act. Very good, thank you. Is there support?
Support for discussion?
Support by Counselor Johnson for discussion. Further discussion, Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Britt, with 1,000 absentee ballots, is there going to be a need for additional election judges or election judges staffing or any of that stuff? Is there, maybe that's a question for Pam, is that something we need to be preparing for as well?
I will defer to Pam, if that's okay.
Yes, Councilor Johnson, we've already acquired help from the election judges that we hired for the primary election, and they've been coming in this last week now, helping to process all the applications and getting those ready to mail out and making up the packets and things like that.
So when those ballots come in, they cannot be counted until November 3rd, or what's the protocol for that? My concern is that I don't want you here to 3:00 in the morning counting ballots if we can plan to have additional election judges helping on election night or however that works. Could you explain how that works?
We can start processing the ballots 14 days prior to the election. So once they are approved by the absentee ballot board who comes in, I have them scheduled about 3 times a week. They will be going through all the applications versus ballots that have been submitted by residents. And then once they are approved, we can process 2 weeks prior to the election and start running them through the machine. And that is usually done by girls in the finance office as well as myself. We'll work on that together.
And then I get my final question is, I guess, security of our ballots and stuff. I know they're kept in the vault downstairs, but when you're doing that, are we going to designate?
They are not kept in the vault in the basement. They are kept in the vault upstairs here.
Well, yeah, for me, it's downstairs. For you, it's in the safe place. But when we're doing it, are we going to have a secure room for that to happen so that people can't just walk in on how that works? I mean, I know we have a few unused conference rooms or a few unused offices. Is there going to be a need? And then would that qualify as a potential COVID expense by utilizing a separate space so that all those things stay where they belong and they're not in boxes or left laying around? You know, not that you would, but I just, with the volume of 1,000 early ballots, that's just blows my mind.
Ballots are in the vault and they do not leave the vault until they get put in the mail. Then when they are received, they are counted or gone through by the absentee ballot board in the committee room. And then they are processed in the vault when we run them through the machine.
Okay.
So they're not open in the committee room. Each ballot that is received is clipped to the application
Okay,
for verification.
okay. All
And
right.
if
I would
you
just
deem it
ask,
necessary, they could be in the vault the whole time, I guess. There's
Okay.
room in there.
and that's, I guess that's what I want to make sure that we're making your life easier by not having to move things around. And if there's a different way of doing it that's more secure, or that would make your life easier, I guess I would encourage the staff to have that discussion and create those plans. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Mayor.
Councilor Bearable.
Pam, I have one question for you. When you receive the application from the individual that's in the community, I'm assuming that the first step you do is check to make sure they're on the registration list. Is that correct?
Yes, Councilor Beard, everything has to go through the state website. So we have to process all things through the SVRS system through the Secretary of State's office.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you very much.
It's been a little while. Did we vote?
Everything we do. is
Have we
through
voted on that yet?
website. So if somebody votes, they can, once we receive their ballot and labels are initiated to send them, once we receive their application, sorry, and we initiate the process to send them the ballot, everything is tracked online, and anybody can go into the Minnesota Secretary of State's website and check where the status of their ballot, when it was mailed, and when it was received, and if it was approved by us or not.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Do we need to vote on this? Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pardon?
Beyondich had another meeting at 10, so she had to leave.
Okay, opposed? Motion carries. Last item on the agenda is the update on the City of Virginia emergency order that was established on March 24th of 2020. Looking for an update of that status as requested. So do we continue on with the emergency order? I did have some conversation with Britt about it. Hasn't had an adverse effect on us at this point in time, so we either keep it in place or we can, we can sunset it. So I'll open that up for discussion from the council. Anybody have any questions about the emergency order, how that's being designated? It's on the shelf. Britt, could you please give us a
Yeah, I
perspective?
do have one comment, is that because of open meeting laws, the way they currently exist, the only way to allow for Zoom meetings is to keep the emergency order in place. Once the emergency order is gone, we cannot have Zoom meetings anymore.
Right, that was the question that I was looking for, or the answer I was looking for. Thank you. So any questions, comments with respect to this, Councilor Johnson?
I just appreciate that I just want to keep people in the loop that we are aware we're still under emergency orders. We're still utilizing social distancing and the ability to effectively Zoom. Has the switch been flipped for our internet? I don't, it seemed like we've been an hour in and we're good. So, I guess the purpose was just to make sure we had talked when we originally passed this, that we would review it regularly. And I just want to be on the record that we are regularly reviewing it, and we are with purpose continuing the emergency order for multiple reasons, but especially so that folks can socially distance as needed.
Not all of our city buildings are open quite yet. They are opening cautiously and carefully. The fire hall is technically locked down, but when they do get visits from the public, they keep them on the first floor to keep the second floor just staff only, so that it's not inhabited by other people from outside. The library is not open to the public yet, however, they are working on it. They are expanding their hours to allow for more traffic. Jody will be here in October to explain a little bit what they've been doing. This was their first Saturday that they were open, was this last Saturday, and they did have some people come and get their stuff that day. Not open to the public, but open for pickup. So they are rapidly changing. Brian has some of his buildings open, some of them not technically open, but slowly but surely working our way with safety protocols and social distancing. The police department is open by appointment only, so if you need to get fingerprinted, you have to make an appointment. You can't come in, just walk in, you have to make an appointment to do that. Public utilities is still closed to the public. However, they will open if you call and make an appointment. They will allow you in if you need to come talk about your bill or such. Just because of the close quarters, and they're having a hard time finding social distancing protocols because it's a very small office.
And the police department is not doing ride-alongs now either.
Correct, they're not doing the ride-alongs in this moment, and neither is the fire department.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. I appreciate that update, and I knew Chief Lewis was unable to make it today. And maybe at our next update, we could go over, some of the numbers and how it's impacting now that they're actually St. Louis County is actually breaking it down by zip code. I would like to go through that, and I appreciate the fact that, by extending this or by continuing it, we can allow more safety measures in each department to, take place before they open up. And I do appreciate the fact that we do have the Zoom ability, but I'd also like to get a little bit more of an update in terms of the infection rate and the impact for the zip code of Virginia, Minnesota.
Yeah, thank you very much, Counselor Paulson. Hopefully, we'll be able to arrange that. Thank you. Okay, any other information that wants to be disseminated with respect to the update on the City of Virginia emergency order? It seems from general consensus that for now, we'll keep it in place based upon some of the requirements that we have with respect to Zoom and other things. And so looking forward to the next update with the information that Counselor Paulson has requested. Anything else, Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question. Now that the county building's complete and there's something to the north of City Hall, even though it's a vacated street, I just want to know if there's something we as a council need to do to define it. Is it a driveway? Is it the west end of First Street? So just because it's not a street, but there's cars on it, so I'd just like us to figure out, maybe Public Works needs to, or what is that? Does it need to be signed, do not enter, driveway only? Because you see folks come in zipping in, I'm sure you see it all day long, Britt. But I just want to make sure that we're creating any safety for our staff or the county staff, the police department. This is their parking. Once and if the garage gets done, and if we have any update on that, that would be great too.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, anything else that anyone would like to bring up for this special meeting? We've gone through the 4 bullet points, and we'll be discussing some of those moving forward at our city council meeting this evening at 5:30. Seeing no other business to come before this special meeting, we will stand adjourned to a regularly scheduled council meeting, which is 5:30 this evening. Thank you, everybody. We stand adjourned.